Hello students, in continuation to previous two lectures in this module, today we'll be discussing social aspects intertwined with the urban ecosystem. What we'll be discussing today? Let us just have an idea about that. First, we will be discussing the paradigm expansion. We had discussed the socio-ecological systems, which is completely different from the natural ecosystem. And the ACS is the constant frame of reference for discussion of our urban ecosystem. Now we'll be discussing how with the advancement of technology, how this ACS is now being expanded as ACTS, where technology comes in. And we will be discussing, followed by that, we'll be discussing the central premise of these social aspects intertwined with the urban ecosystem. And we'll be discussing there the service, process, and function through these four different verticals, that is culture, community, and socio-ecological resilience. That is the service part we will be discussing, the process, human nature interactions, and the functions we are getting out of this process, that is the co-production and environmental injustice or justice. Let us see how we look at it, and we will be conclude our discussion through case examples. The paradigm expansion, our foundational framework for urban ecosystem is the social ecological system. So the human beings are impacting nature. That's an old model that is no more valid for today's urban systems, which we have discussed in detail in our previous lectures. What's the new model talks about? Urban ecosystem is co-shaped by human beings and ecology. Urban ecosystems are not natural systems that include the humans. So, natural ecosystem include humans, that's a completely different ecosystem. And here we are saying that it's a new system where humans and nature, they are co-shaping each other. That's the major discussion point here. They are the hybrid systems created by the dynamic interplay of people, institutions, culture, and ecology. So, all four are important stakeholders for today's urban ecosystem. And we have discussed these four ecology frameworks, if you remember, as well as we have also brought its parallel to the ACS framework. So, when we talked about ecology in cities, we talked about the very first input for the ACS, that ecological subsystem inputs, information at different scales. Then we talked about the second framework where we talked about ecology of cities and vis-a-vis the social ecological systems integrated system view. Then framework 3 was compared with the social ecological systems, interventions and governance levers. And the final one, ecology with cities, the framework 4, that was being discussed along with social ecological systems, co-production, learning and adaptation stage. So that's the way we brought the parity between the emerging frameworks. Now, as I told you earlier, we'll be discussing how that social ecological systems is now converging or evolving further to social ecological technological systems. We have already evolved to this social ecological technical systems framework, and this explicitly adds technology, the engineered material aspects of the city like irrigation, concrete, brick, steel, drainage, other infrastructure, buildings, etc. An urban park is not just social and ecological, it is also technological because you need lights, you need irrigation, paths needs to be laid out. So that makes it ACTS frameworks acceptable. What happens here, you can see very quickly, it's a very simplistic way to talk about it. If it is the SETS framework at the center, we start with the ecological biophysical domains, which interacts with the technological infrastructural domain as well as the social economic domain. So it's the ecological technological interaction, it is the social ecological interactions, and again social economic domain and the technological infrastructure domain, they also interact each other. So that's the premise of sets. So now we'll be discussing, we have already discussed this right hand side sets where we have added technology. Previously, what we said when we were discussing the social ecological systems, we discussed people, institutions, culture, and ecology. Now we have added the technology. So it's the sets. And now we will also see with this that social aspects which are coming into the urban ecosystem. And there we will start looking at the services which are very much social and what are the processes involved and what functions are shaping these services. So, the first thing we will be discussing culture, community, and socio ecological resilience. That's the services we are getting, that's the social services we are getting from these urban ecosystems, and we'll be discussing the process, that is the human nature interaction. And what are the functions are coming out of those processes? That is the co-production and environmental justice. So you can either use environmental justice, that is a much acceptable term, or when we discuss, you will see we will be discussing a lot about the injustice. So, the service, that is the culture, community, and socio ecological resilience, which demonstrate how deeply social structures, collective identities, and cultural meanings are intertwined with the functioning and evolution of the urban ecological systems. The process, as I told you, human nature interaction, which engages with the ecosystems through everyday functional, emotional, and culturally meaningful interactions. Co production, communities participate in shaping nature and vice versa. Environmental justice, which negotiate fair access to environmental benefits and burdens across social groups. So, first thing we'll be discussing that services, culture, community, and socio-ecological resilience. Society looks beyond provisioning and regulating services like flood control or getting the food to the intangible benefits, that's the cultural ecosystem services. The CES is the non-material benefit and improve the welfare of urban residents and improve socio-cultural resilience. Examples from the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment classification we can take, that is spiritual and religious values, knowledge systems, social relations, sense of place, recreation and ecotourism. This is interesting to discuss about the socio-ecological resilience here because we are discussing about the urban ecosystem services. So the resilience is the ability to withstand, adapt to or recover from natural disasters and social threats. And this requires a fully integrated social, ecological, technological systems approach. The critical distinction between the engineering resilience and socio ecological resilience. Engineering resilience talks about bounce back to a previous state, that is, rebuild the same levee. What the social ecological resilience talks about? Adapt and transform. Transform into a new, more sustainable state. Build social capital and collaborative governance to respond differently. So, we'll be discussing this type of resilience through examples. Next one we'll be discussing, that is the human nature interactions. It's a process. We'll be discussing under this the relational shift, spectrum of interactions, human nature connections, and also the technique which we discussed in last week's class as well, that is participatory mapping. Human nature interactions, the first point we would like to have discussion on, that is the relational shift. This ACTS framework requires a relational shift in our thinking. So, if previously you have asked that how many parks are in Delhi, now you have to think differently. You have to ask questions like what are the relationships of power, culture, and economics that determine the distribution, quality, and access of those parks. And with again and again, I am telling, with our evolving ideas, evolving theories, and tools and techniques, we can answer these new questions as well. So, this shifts our focus from things, parks were only things, structures, to power dynamics, relationships. What makes sure that particular area is getting a park or not? And what is the quality of that park? How to access that park? So, those are the questions being asked. That is a shift. The second point under these human nature interactions is the spectrum of interaction. So, here we try to understand the convergences and the divergences. And for that, we use several different, for that, we need to understand few basic definitions like perception. How people view green space for health benefits, for recreation, is it for livelihood, is it for movement? So, this varies by the social background. Use. How people use green space. Is it for quiet restoration or active socializing? So, active socializing, which can lead to conflict. And the third place, which needs to be discussed, is the stewardship, active conservation, management, monitoring, and advocacy. Who is taking lead? This is a form of claims making on space. And we will see these stewardships are not always for the social equity. So, first thing is fostering stewardship, sense of place. The mechanism is how do we turn use into stewardship? For that, we need a place attachment. That's a condition. A deep affective bonding, linking identity to a specific location. And this particular place attachment is fostered by active use. The person who uses it repeatedly and is familiar with it will always have the better gradient of place attachment. So, repeated interaction for leisure or livelihood, familiarity, attachment grows with time. So, the fourth dimension, and the restorative experiences, peaceful green spaces that offer refuge. And this place attachment is the engine of pro environmental action. And if we are interested to understand this causal chain which leads this place attachment to the action, we can just take advantage of this brief image, this good flowchart. The place attachment, which is actually we associate it with a task with the heart. Civic engagement, participation, the community is coming there. And the pro environmental behaviors, your hands or stewardships. If you would like to lead or if you would like to maintain, whatever type of actions you would like to take. So, this provides a powerful theoretical justification for bottom up governance. So, the people of the place, they needs to have a say, they needs to have a leadership position. Those type of actions can be seen through this. The stewardship equity paradox I was telling you, this is a very nice image which actually explains this paradox. Stewardship is not a neutral good. The paradox is that the most engaged stewards tend to be more educated, wealthier, and less commonly people representing socially vulnerable sections. This creates a social ecological conflict. Whose vision for the city is being realized? Why this question is coming? Why this we are saying is not a neutral good? You just see that stewardship of one group, like one group is deciding, okay, let us beautify this area. Maybe to do that, In the process, you can actually lose some of the people from that area who were there previously. So, displacement of these poor people are the result, which is not always positive for that group, but stewardship is actually trying to advocate the beautification. So, we will come to the third point now, that is human nature connection, because to build this inclusive stewardship, we need a deeper human nature connection. It creates a conducive environment for this inclusive stewardship. Human nature connection is a relationship with nature built on three domains of learning: cognitive, that is guided by the head; ecological literacy, knowledge of species, understanding of systems; affective, the heart, awe, wonder, empathy, and also you start feeling that place attachment, sense of place. These are the coming from your heart. And the third one, action, that is hands, psychomotor, the physical embodied acts of doing, gardening, monitoring, restoring, making do. So these are the three different domains of learning, and human nature connection actually helps this stewardship towards this. And to conclude this particular human nature interaction, that's the process, I will come to this participatory mapping process, again the technique PPGIS, and this is a practical tool for co-governance because we were discussing bottom up, how to do that. For that you need this type of techniques: people centric spatial modeling approach, which maps structures, where is the tree canopy, that type of traditional GIS we have seen enough. Now the PPGIS will map relationships, values, and perceptions. Where do you feel a sense of place? Where do you desire ecosystem services? Which place you feel that you will really use when it is having a very strong urban heat condition? So these are the changes. So this is a wonderful technique or method to achieve the relational shift. So participatory mapping and similar type of tools and techniques will help this human nature interaction, that process, to actually bring better and better improved functions. So the last segment of this discussion is the function, that is the first one is the co-production. I'll be discussing three lenses of co-production. First is the social ecological world, the second is the world of science, and the third is the actionable knowledge. So the urban landscape itself is a hybrid one. Informal settlement on a floodplain is shaped by both the water ecology as well as social political decisions, spatial exclusion. Similarly, the co-production of science, our knowledge of these systems is co-produced. Effective urban ecology requires collaboration between ecologists, practitioners, and the stakeholders. Then only the science can come up. And co-production of actionable knowledge, this goal is using the hands. So this goal is a reflexive process where researchers and communities work together to build resilience. And the last part of this discussion is the environmental justice, the last function I will be discussing. This is having two arms. One is the distributive justice, the other one is procedural justice. The first one talks about fairness in the distribution of environmental benefits and burdens as well. Benefits include access to green space, safe housing, nutritious foods, or healthcare. And burdens include air and water pollution, pesticides, industrial chemicals, infectious disease, flooding, noise pollution, polluted water, and other factors that undermine well being. And the second term which we have to discuss under this, that is the procedural justice. Fairness in the procedures and processes of decision making. Meaningful input. Key insight on this particular unequal landscape of environmental justice is that a lack of procedural justice, that means poor communities have no voice, no access to the power, is the primary cause of distributive injustice. So they get the burdens, the other group gets the benefits. So that is the unequal landscape. Let us continue this discussion on distributive injustice. First, we will be discussing the differential exposure to hazards. Vulnerability to heat, flooding, and pollution is not equal. We know the risk to the same hazard is going to be different because of vulnerability and exposure factor. So it is driven by four factors: physical exposure, development processes, social characters, and governance weakness. Please go through them in detail and you just see the interconnected drivers of heat inequality. If there is any inequality in the heat regime, for that we just see transnational injustice, green climate gentrification. I'll be discussing this gentrification and adaptation praxis. So, this will be good to read this slide carefully. This environmental justice is also about the unequal distribution of benefits, which I was referring just now. Green inequity, the conspicuous inequalities in the distribution and utilization of park green spaces can be a wonderful example to elaborate this point. The evidence is very clear. Populations with higher incomes and more education have better access. Trees grow on money. If you have money, then only that particular space is getting not only being planted but also being maintained. This is confirmed in large scale reviews and studies across globe. So the continuation to the discussion on green gentrification, very important, because many of us we are very much interested to go for go greening concept. But let us also see the negative side of it. It's a wicked problem. What happens when we address green inequity? It's nothing but green gentrification. A disadvantaged neighborhood, I think if you remember that Los Angeles case, you can relate it very, very directly. We will bring back that example as well. Disadvantaged neighborhood like Los Angeles is targeted for greening. Very good. These environmental amenities will increase the property values. That's the influence. What the market will force? That influx of wealthy residents. And definitely that will displace the original low income residents who were the intended beneficiaries. So, this will be a new distributive injustice caused by fixing an old one, that there was no green, without procedural justice. So, that has been also replicated in this image. Green amenity investment, property value increase, demographic shift, which is leading to the eviction of the previous gentry. Now, new gentry is coming there. Through some case examples, we will be discussing the social aspects which gets intertwined with the urban ecosystem. First one is the environmental justice in Los Angeles. I brought it first because you know it already. So the problem we know, inequitable tree canopy, is a historical legacy of race-based planning like redlining, so that disadvantaged communities have less space for trees. It was reframed. The city's Green New Deal frames tree planting explicitly as reparative justice to redress this racist history. The risk is this is a prime example of the green gentrification trap, which I discussed just now. So, the solution, the reparative justice, will ask for moving beyond charity to reparative justice. The city's Green New Deal explicitly targets historically disadvantaged community for 50% canopy increase by 2028. It's a three-tier interventions: reallocating public roadway space, curbing the extensions to plant trees, where sidewalks are too narrow. So another additional intervention layer has also been added. Next one I will be discussing, that's the community failure, Cape Town's day zero. We discussed about the community participation and all. Let us see the crisis first. The 2015 to 2018 drought serves as a powerful warning for the city. The crisis was not just no rain, it was a complex governance and management failure. The injustice, if you look at it, then we can easily conclude that policies to avoid day zero unveiled and heightened existing inequalities only, placing a disproportionate financial burden on the low income communities. What the city has learned and the world, that a city that is not just cannot be resilient. Injustice is a driver of socio-ecological vulnerability. So, if you have to go for social ecological resilience, you have to look at this equity part as well. So, the solution what this particular Cape Town city and its communities could bring, nature based solutions, invasive species like pine, eucalyptus in the catchments that consumed 4% of the region's water. So, that was being identified and action was taken, like clearing these plants, which is cheaper and more sustainable than the desalination. The second thing they have done, they have created a common fund, the Greater Cape Town Water Fund, which took care of several such actions. And the last part is the community stewardship, which we were discussing when we were discussing this services function and process. That's the green jobs they created. This fund employs upstream stewards, local youth and women to clear the invasive plants. And as a result, the particular initiative restored the biodiversity of the upstream and releases billions of liters of water back into the system, which was being consumed by the invasive species. Definitely, they have done so many other things like reservoir maintenance and all this connection. But this was also very interesting to see how the social ecological resilience can be built. I will come to the next example, that is co production at Pune. The thesis or theory is a bottom up collaborative model for co production, which is driven by the citizen science. So, the community took a decision for mapping the trees across the Mula River channel. Over 200 citizens, they participated and mapped 3,500 plus trees. Data was so rigorous that it was accepted by the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. So, even anything can be done at the local level appropriately. You just see the entire world is waiting to make use of that action. So, you can see a good image from that. And this was the form they had used for this tree mapping. Taljai Hill geotagging, citizens use a custom app, Track My Tree, which I was showing previously. Track My Tree. I can go back and I can show you there also that tree listing is happening. So, in this Track My Tree, they monitored the saplings, they turned the stewardship into a tool for data driven bottom up accountability. Another example from the same exercise is the Pashan Lake monitoring. Citizen science monitoring led Citizen science monitoring led to measurable ecological changes like better water quality, more baths, as well as social outcomes like increased advocacy and knowing your neighbors. All these things comes from this type of initiatives. Our next example will be on the other side, that is the conflict. I discussed about convergences and the divergences. Now we'll be discussing the divergence, that's the conflict. Delhi's Jamuna Plateau. The antithesis is a top down, conflict driven model of injustice. The DDA is pushing beautification projects model on Sabarmati. And this greening is driven by middle class aesthetic imaginaries of clean and green cities. A bourgeois environmentalism may be a very strong comment, but that has been made by this authors group. And what is the outcome? We have to remember that when we are discussing urban ecosystem, it's not just ecology, it is urban political ecology. So greening is weaponized by a group of people to conserve land while erasing the communities that inhabit it. But yes, the counter argument can be the communities are actually illegally settling on that area. So this discussion has to really go on to resolve this conflict. So the key takeaways from these social aspects which are intertwined with the urban ecosystem, the first one is that we cannot separate the social from the ecological or technological. That's our SETS framework talks about. The second thing, power matters. Access to nature is determined by power dynamics, leading to green inequity and gentrification. Context is key. Solutions must differ between Los Angeles, that reparative justice, to Delhi, avoiding displacement. So, our path forward, we look forward that we will continuously take it in our strides to understand the urban ecosystem, both from human side as well as the ecology side and also the technology side, what sets advocates. And resilience requires co-production and advanced techniques like participatory tools, PPGIS, and we have to keep on using them. So today we can summarize that whenever we are discussing the urban ecosystems, social aspects are intertwined with that, and we need to understand that clearly. In the evolving social ecological system framework, we have seen paradigm has expanded to social ecological technological system perspective. And in this perspective, human nature interaction can be seen as a core process, while the co-production and environmental justice that function as outcomes, mechanisms, or mediating functions that shape how that service of culture and socio-ecological resilience to community unfolds. So these are the references for today's lecture. Thank you.